The lights are off and away they go.
Extremely loose. He's managed to hold on and
He missed the complete that. He's crazy stuff.
Westside Freitas is on the grass on the infield floor. He slides through. He tags Richard.
If ever there was a country that made lemons out of lemonade from World War II, the English saw all the leftover airfields and said to themselves, hey, these might be fun for cars. Snetterton was one such racetrack born out of that practice, and with this circuit being new to iRacing, fresh off the presses, and ready to be tested, there's a number of unknowns as to what's in store for our drivers. We'll find out what this odd little track has up its sleeve as we get ready to watch round 2 of the iRacing Kamel GT series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Samuel Ryman. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Sam, I'm pretty certain we'll have a few viewers today not familiar with this track, so why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, take me home, country roads, to the racetrack I belong, because this is my original home track over in England. It is in Norfolk, the United Kingdom, and we are racing on the Snetterton 300 configuration, which is kind of new. So if you went to Snetterton any time before 2011, it is going to look quite a bit different here. We still have the regular turn 1, which leads into turn 2, now named after the late Justin Wilson. But then you see after that they kind of have built this new infield action, which could definitely change things up. Then we come back out onto the circuit, the long and famous run down the back straight, Bentley Straight, into Brundle, Nelson, Bombhole, and of course ending the lap over at Morries. In total it's 2.97 miles, 4.78 kilometers, 13 turns around this course here in the eastern region of England. But let's give you a better idea of what this racetrack is like with our GSRC lap guide.
Alright, we're in the GSRC Audi, so let's do a lap around Snetterton. Coming up to Riches, though there's plenty of braking and you might get a chance to pass, this is still a relatively fast corner. The double apex also makes it tough to execute. From out of there, you could also be tempted to try something into Wilson. This is a tight little hairpin with a long braking distance in the Audi, but it's so sharp that entering on the inside line might just be too slow to get the pass done. Out of the corner, you've got to switch sides and you won't have much time to set up for Palmer. You'll find it really tightens on the exit, and many drivers will be lured into getting onto the power too early. Follow the slight curve of the straight and try to spot your brake marker for Agostini. This is a deceptively tight curve, and I found myself wanting to brake later and later, only to get bitten with a bad push mid-corner. I think a pass or two might be seen over the course of the race. Coming up quick is Hamilton, which is surprisingly fun for a medium-speed 90-degree bend. Then, right away, you're into Augies, which is thankfully the last of these many infield hairpins. The tricky bit here is the curved acceleration zone, where you might see a few tire tracks being left as drivers try to find grip. Then you've got one of the most important turns of the track with Williams. It's really tough not to turn in too early, and with it dumping you onto the Bentley straight, a hesitation on the gas can be costly. After a short breather, you're chucked back into it with one of the toughest braking zones of the whole lap. Brundle requires a big stab on the brakes, and then carefully you'll be bleeding it out as you get the car to turn. Then finally, another big stomp is needed to slow you up for Nelson. Keep off that big inside curve and then look for your brake marker into the bomb hole. The car compresses in the middle, but it's the crest on the exit that'll leave you spinning your tires half the time. Finally, we've got Coram. You'll always feel like you'll want to feed a little more gas in, but it's critical that you hug the right side. Straighten out the end of it as best you can, since that's where you'll be braking for Murray's. With this taking you back onto the pit straight, a good exit is oh so important. But hopefully you've kept it all together and have now finished a lap around Snetterton. There's a lap around this brand new, fresh track to give you an idea of what these drivers will be experiencing today. Of course, they've got plenty of practice in, so this isn't totally new, and they may have had a couple races before we cover this one. But real quick, let's cover some of the drivers' championships. In the Nissans, the drivers are being led by Keith Ritchie. He's got 22 points over Tapani Lenaluoto after last week's race. And then another 21 points back, you've got Ardo Ihimaki. So Finn's trying to chase down the American, but they're sandwiched between more Americans, Michael Houghton and Rob Olenek, currently sitting in 4th and 5th. In the Drivers' Championship over on the Audi side, however, Joni Hagner, it is a Finn up at the top with 173 points. It's 45 points back until you get to Ove Trangarade, though. A big gap there. And then Brian Strodbeck is 2 points behind in a tight fight for second with 47 points, just sitting there in third. Philip Lake a little ways back, but still close in the hunt, sitting in fourth. And then Ben Laughter rounds out the top five. You can see on your screen we are going through qualifying currently. And Sam, I'll be honest, I feel like it's a bit into unknown territory here today. This is our first coverage of this track.
Yeah, our first coverage, and also, as you mentioned, all of these drivers are getting used to this track, and it's going to take a little while. I wouldn't be surprised, unfortunately, this track being quite close to my heart, if we have some drivers not too pleased with the way their race unfolds today and not say great things about the circuit, because it is very, very tricky. In some ways it reminds me of VIR. There's corners out there that you don't necessarily have a defined apex, a place where you brake, hit the turn and get back on the gas. You kind of just have to navigate your best way around the turn, and some drivers are going to do very well at that, but other drivers might struggle. We'll have to wait and see what it looks like in 45 minutes time.
There's our leaderboard currently, but just to get you up to date on what to expect in this race, we are in round 2 that we mentioned, 12 rounds, with this being an official series as we watch Martin Ensman spin it around there. It's a 45-minute race. If you're used to last season, they upped it by 15 minutes, a little bit longer in the series. Now, it is an open setup, but we do not expect pit stops in this series. If you come into the pits, then something has gone wrong, and the points that they earn today are, of course, official points. But up at the top right now, Rob Olenek leads the times for the Nissans. Brian Strodbeck is your pole sitter for the GTOs, and most of them are getting very close to being finished with their 2 laps by now.
Yeah, we have 16 Nissans here and 12 Audis, 28 drivers in total, and that's 28 people who signed up for this race. It's all being thrown into one split, so we're going to see a variety of different talent levels, skill sets, shall we say, from the drivers at the top, running about 1 minute 32's the slowest Audis out there right now, down in the 1 minute 50s. So there might be quite a bit of lap traffic with these extra 15 minutes being added to this race.
Well, the Nissans will be used to that since they typically catch the Audis on most tracks very quickly with the lap time difference that they have between them. Here we're watching Villaruola try to come in and get his second lap around as he crosses the line. Does he improve from where he's sitting in 5th? He does. He goes up the 2nd on the grid.
It'll be interesting to see how critical qualifying is going to be. I've got to imagine one reason you really want to qualify, Joe, towards the front for this race is because there's so much unknowns out there. What are going to be the trouble spots? What are going to be the passing opportunities? How hard will it be to navigate your way through the field, racing some drivers who may not have seen this circuit that much before because it is so new to iRacing? Of course, the best way to avoid any chaos that may erupt in the middle of a field is to qualify ahead of it.
That's what Lino Luoto is trying to do. You can tell he's hustling the car coming out of Williams, all kinds of crossed up. Now he's all the way to Coram. He's sitting in 3rd currently on the timing sheets. Remember, he's 2nd in the points, and he wants to try and get as many as he can here with Keith Ritchie looking to not show today. Can he improve from that 2nd row position? 133.1. He crosses the line. And it looks like 3rd is going to be the best that he can do at the start.
Which still isn't a bad qualifying position, of course, and only 0.2 of a second really separating the top 4 in the Nissan field. Now, you notice there as he was going through the final turn, Mori, so that's been reconfigured from the chicane to a left-hander, and I have a feeling, Joe, that turn will prove critical throughout the race because it can be quite slippery out there. The track temperature being a rather cool 77 degrees. Hopefully the drivers won't have to fight it too much. But if you do get crossed up exiting that final turn, that's really going to hurt you for the long run down the front straight.
And it is oh so tough with the braking and Coram to get in there as we watch Lepisto demonstrate how to get through. And successfully at that. He's currently sitting in 6th and qualifying. Can he improve that 133.3? He crosses the line, and he does, and he topples Tapani Lino Luoto. He takes that 3rd away.
By 0.004 of a second, shows you how tight it is there at the front of the field. There you see the famous Snetterton Bridge there, which has been moved a little bit. But I think a tail end of this course has remained very much the same from what it used to be in the olden days, Joe. But let's go through the grid here real quick.
Rob Olenek will start them off on the pole with Michael Houghton in 2nd. Lepisto, as you saw, got himself up to 3rd in the last seconds. Tapani Linuoto will start 4th with Nick McConos in 5th, Ardo Yamaki in 6th, and Jesus Basillas in 7th. Then it's Jamie Hall starting in 8th, followed by Michael Swansea in 9th. John Hill will round out the top 10 of the Nissans, Martin Ensman in 11th, and John Keefe in 12th. Martin Krejcirek starts in 13th. He's followed by Jerry Folkorb in 14th, and Jason Willott rounds out the Nissans with a lap time in 15th.
Yeah, one Nissan didn't have lap time. As far as the Audis go, we have Brian Strobbeck on pole. This is quite a bit more of a spread out qualifying. He has 0.2 over Villaruola right behind him, and Vill has another 0.7 over Philip Blake starting 3rd in class. Then we go to Ove Transgerald ahead of Cesar Terran. We also have Ben Laughter back there, as well as Matthew Smith. Franco Scurry out-qualifies Hideki Koivisto, Brian Shanahan and Riley Thompson and Ross Goodacre round out the field. Now you see Laurent Raffagu there at the bottom of the field in the number 28 Nissan. Now he is in the session, and I believe he'll get to start with at the tail end of the Nissan field here.
So as they get going here on the not even half a warm-up lap, really. They start right before quorum. The roof pace car will release them. Michael Houghton has been on quite a run. He's found some pace since we started covering this series. He's going to start on the outside of the front row. But what can Rob Olenek do without Keith Ritchie here today? Ritchie's been dominant along with Linda Luoto. And this is going to be the best chance that Rob has to try and steal a win. And look at that. Caught the field napping by some margin as Houghton falls back into the clutches of Lepisto. Looking to the inside as they come up to Riches. They're going to get single file very quickly in the top 6. Let's go back to the Audis.
Brian Strobbeck got a nice launch, but the rest of the field able to keep with him as they go through the first corner here. And now they're going on the run up to Wilson. Strobbeck still has to watch his rear view mirror here. That's Seville Ruola on the outside. And now they go off into the infield section. Ville able to hold on to second there to Philip Lake.
Very tight through that hairpin and Wilson. But amazingly, they all managed to get through. A little bit side-by-side action between Tranquerade and Ben Laughter, but Laughter's going to carry the speed, and we've got a Nissan off behind them. That's Laurent Raffago.
Yeah, Laurent, remember, didn't put in the qualifying time. He started at the tail end of a Nissan field. He did make contact with the wall, but wasn't too heavy. Hopefully, he should be able to continue.
Up at the front of the Nissans, we return to Olenek leading over Houghton by half a second. They're stretching away just a little bit from Lepisto, who's pulled a decent gap over Linda Luoto, not having the start that he wants.
These two turns right after under the bridge here, they kind of work together. You can't treat them as separate corners, and we got trouble at the back there. That's Arto.
Yes, Ihamaki having trouble under the tricky braking through Brundle that leads into Nelson. We're going to watch on board the Finn, just losing the rear end. I've done that a number of times in my laps here around here so far.
Yeah, I think everyone has, Joe, and that's the problem. You have to remember that right-hander comes up so quickly after you make that left-hander kink through Brundle. I think especially when the tyres are cold, you've really got to get early on the brakes and respect those two corners.
Watching Lepisto and Linda Luoto trying to battle it out for third position there in the GTP field. They come up to Palmer. One of those tricky apexes you mentioned, trying to find that corner. Stays right with him, but not close enough to try to get a go into Agostini. Pisto having a little lockup, misses the apex, now cost him. All very tight racing up in both classes so far, Sam. It's just nobody's able to get away from one another.
No, but there have been a couple of big movers. Most notably is John Keefe. He started in 12th position in the Nissan class. He's already worked his way up into 8th, so great opening lap from him. And he doesn't have anyone directly ahead of him to continue his charge, but he doesn't have anyone directly behind him to take that 8th away from him.
In fact, the one behind him is more worried about the car behind. John Hill has got Martin Ensman putting the pressure on. And it's also a 3-car battle because you can see Michael Schwanze behind these guys who misses the apex. However, a great turn by Ensman to get him to close up. And Schwanze is way off and he spears into the tires.
That's the challenge at his bomb hole. Once you get out of that chicane after the bridge, it looks like you're in for just a long right-hander. But really, bomb hole, this first kink here, and I think they just came out of it, is much more of a turn than it appears on paper, and I wonder if Schwanze just overshot that a little bit and you saw the consequences, and he's coming into the pits to get repairs.
Only he and Raffago have fallen behind the Audis at the moment, which means they've got to work their way through without the blue flags to help them. Here we switch.
Around from second goes Houghton. He had been closing in on our race leader. He spun to the right and then he called he spun to the left and then he called it and spun back over to the right, and somehow all the cars behind him were able to get by.
Well, that checkup cost Linda Luoto for a little bit as he went side by side with Mucanos. Nick Mucanos made a valiant effort at trying to overtake him, but in the end, he was the one that lost the position as Jamie Hall got himself up into 4th. Look at this, he wants it back right away.
Yeah, it's not the place where you want to be making a pass, though.
Brundle, oh, so difficult under braking. So he falls back, and Mukanos is settling for 5th for now. Still a long ways to go. We're only 5 minutes into this 45-minute race.
Of course, the biggest winner out of all of this has been our overall leader, because now Rob in the number 5 car, as he comes across the line to complete lap number 3, has no pressure from behind.
3-second gap over Lepisto at this point. Not so in the Audis, as Rolla is keeping Strodbeck very honest. Up for that lead, Strodbeck struggling, and so is Rolla through Nelson. Both of them missing the apex. Rolla much worse.
Battle for 3rd is still quite hot and heavy, with Philip Lake ahead of Cesar Terron as they come into the break-in zone for Maurice here. If Cesar could try and get a good run out of a turn, he could challenge into the first corner, but he's not able to do that.
His exit off the bomb hole put him out in the dirt for a little bit, and that cost him some time. Gives a little breathing space up to Lake. Terron still our closest fight, though, in the Audis. Everybody else... Oh, actually, I take that back. Ove Trangaré behind Ben Laughter. Oh, and once again, we're seeing cars just understeering off into the dirt in a number of places here, Sam.
Yeah, you can't really have a lot of laughter, though, when you see a driver make a mistake in front of you, because I feel if your attention gets distracted for just one moment around here, we've seen a lot of drivers taking off into the grass in the early stages. Don't know how much of that is to do with cold tyres. Remember, this being an official series race, there is an incident. Actually, I take that back. There is no incident point limit here. So, okay, go ahead, run the grass.
One of the unique things about the Kamel GT series, the community has elected, they've asked iRacing for no incident limit. They don't feel like it's a problem here, which I kind of don't blame them. At least in the Nissans, if you make a mistake, things go so bad in a hurry, really not going to find the incident limit before you're done.
Yeah, of course, so safety rating still comes to effect. They haven't asked them to turn that off, have they?
No, safety rating is still on in this series. We're watching Terron still work his way on Philip Lake. A little bit too much inside curve for Terron, and that denies him the opportunity to get onto the back of Lake. Whoa, way off coming through the bomb hole once again.
Toyoto, remember him, he was running up front early on, then made a mistake and has dropped back through the field. He just took 11th place away from, as, I'm sorry, I thought we had trouble at the back of the Audi field there. He took it away from Jerry Foucault. And I think we just had to change for 4th in the Nissan field.
There was a car around, that was Jamie Hall actually. And he might lose it to John Keefe, who's screaming up on the outside as they come up to Brundle. How brave is he? Not brave enough? Or is he? He sticks it too wide. Tries to get a nose in. They almost come together. He's given room at the apex. Look at how much speed that cost him as Michael Houghton is now on his rear wing.
Well,
Let's see what happened to Hall.
Whenever my dad took me here, Joe, we'd always sit right under the bridge or over in Bombhole. I'm starting to work out why. Now, that's not where Hall made his mistake. You saw Hall made his mistake a lot earlier on in the lap, but then it was through Brundle and Nelson and the bomb hole that he was trying to be defensive. He's lost a lot of top end speed, though. You see that hurting him here on the front straight. John Keefe gets by for 5th.
Yeah, that was a big clout into the inside wall, and under braking, he's going to lose another position as Houghton almost gets into the back of Keefe. Has to back out of it, and he's going to be side by side as they come up to Palmer. But once again, he finds the grip, and now Houghton gets himself up into 6th. Remember, he started in 2nd place. He's trying to come back.
Yeah, I think Houghton did get into the back of Keefe. He apologised on the chat. Fortunately, no harm, no foul, it would appear. Meanwhile, these drivers now are going to have to deal with a bit of lap traffic from the Audis. Ross Goodacre is the last car running right now, and as a matter of fact, every car still running. We've seen a couple of cars have to make early pit stops.
In fact, we were watching that tight battle between at least 5 or 6 cars here with Houghton now up at the front of them. Or excuse me, it's John Keefe at the front of them. He's trailed by Houghton. Oh, Keefe a little bit wide through Brundle. That's going to hurt him. Here comes Houghton, smelling blood in the water. Takes a look at the inside, but the bomb hole is not a good place for passes.
Oh, and meanwhile, some of our lead Nissans also coming up on this battle for third in the Audis, which is still going on, but it kind of just broke up through Wilson. Philip Blake absolutely overshot that turn, and before he gets a chance to counter-challenge Cesar, he's having to yield positions to the lead Nissans coming through, and that could actually put him into the clutches of Ben Lafter, who's back in 5th in class.
Get a little bit chaotic as they get intermingled. You can see just how much it hurts on the corners to get stuck behind these Audis, as we had some contact between Philip Blake and Ben Lafter coming through Augies.
Yeah, this is full position.
Not worth a replay, just a little bit of a tap in the back, but he's got an opportunity, Sam.
Yeah, this might be worth a replay, depending on how this goes down. Whenever two cars go side by side into Brundle, I'm just there shaking my head. Let's see if they can pull it off. Philip Blake still has a desired inside, and look, they got a challenger behind him as well, with Tranderald watching on in the popcorn position, and somehow they almost went side by side through bomb hole as well. Lake retains the position, but a lot of hungry Audis right behind him.
Brave stuff from those two, and now that we've got Trangerade in the popcorn position. Oh, and a big off there by Lake. Coming through Murray's. He carries the speed well, and that's not going to allow Ben Lafter an opportunity immediately. He is within the draft as they come up to Riches. He backs out of it before they get to the corner, though.
Yeah, that's how critical Morris is right there. He was trying to carry speed through it, and he got away with it, but you can see just how easily it can go wrong. It's a turn when you want to get a good exit, but if you slide just a little bit too much, it could bite you in the back.
Let's get a replay here, because a change for second position. Antti Lepisto lost out to Linda Luoto in stunning fashion through Brundle. A little bit more downforce on these cars. They even had traffic in front of them, you can see, with the car of Hideki Koivisto just ahead, but all three Finns get out of it safely.
Now, meanwhile, the battle for 5th and Nissan is entering this Audi traffic, with John Keefe holding off a train as they try and navigate their way around the Audis, but Michael Houghton also thinking about trying to take 5th in the not-too-distant future. Behind him, he has Jamie Hall, who has a crumpled front fender. Martin Ensman, haven't really mentioned him, but he's had a good race so far, started 11th, up to 8th.
We look through the 007 cam. From John Keefe back to Houghton. Keefe so far doing a great job of holding him off. Oh, and as I say that, commentator's curse tries to go around the outside of the Audi of Matthew Smith. They're going to have to split him as the cars stream by. 3 of them. Jamie Hall at the tail. Michael Houghton trying to take advantage. He runs out of track and they come into Brundle.
And wait to see who's our first 3 drivers to try going 3 wide into Brundle.
I do not look forward to that day. Here's Hideki Koivisto once again, having a hold of the outside as the Nissan stream through. He's got no one to battle with, dutifully stays out of their way.
Alright, now we're back onto the front straight where passing opportunities can happen, and Houghton is thinking about it. He's got the draft, he's got the round, he's got the inside line on Keefe as they come down to turn 1.
Into Riches they go. Double apex are so tough around the outside, and Keefe finally has to give up the ghost. It was a number of laps in happening, but Michael Houghton finally cracks the top 5.
And not too far behind these guys, Jesus Pasalas and just past John Hill for 9th place. And the reason that's so significant is the fact that Arto Ihamaki is rallying his way back up through the field. He's made it to 11th, and he's about to catch all of these drivers that we've seen on screen battling these last couple of laps.
Ihamaki qualified in 6th. His tumble took him all the way down to nearly the last of the Nissans, but through the GTP field, he's got himself up to 11th. Next up is John Hill.
Battle for
familiar
3rd.
Yellow car.
Battle for 3rd in Nissan. Nicholas gonna try and make it work through Brundle. And off goes the Audi behind him. Comes down on almost.
Oh my goodness. We're gonna watch on board Cesar. And any farther to the right, and I think Nicholas would have ended his day right then and there. Just a little bit too much understeer.
Little Caesar's car almost delivered an unpleasant delivery right there.
Thankfully, he stayed out of him, and he's still in third place in class. My goodness, that was one of the scariest moments I've seen in a while here on GSRC. But Rukanos did take that third place away from Lepisto. Does Lepisto have damage? I'm trying to take a look at his car, because he's been falling backwards.
Tell you another driver who's been falling backwards was Jesus Pasalas. He lost a couple of positions last lap coming out of Morris. He ran off course. That allowed John Hill and Arto Ihamaki to go by him.
Now Casillas now is back into that 11th spot. Ihamaki cracking the top 10. Having to deal with traffic though. It's the car of Ove Trangarade with quite a lot of lockups we've seen today in both classes.
I'll tell you what, we hadn't mentioned our overall leader for a while because he had about a 3-second lead, but it's down to less than that now. Tapani Luto has really ran Rob down, and there's less than a second between them as they go through Bomb Hole and work their way through these last couple of corners. They're completing lap 10 this time around. Of course, so it's a timed race, so we're about 16 minutes through this race. So still a long ways to go. Let's keep an eye on these two.
It's always tricky to tell who is faster than who with traffic. Sometimes it can hurt you, but I'm looking at the lap times. 38, 37, and 35 for Olenek those last few laps, while Linda Luoto has run a 36, 37, and a 35. So they're about even on pace on that last lap. Now they come down to Wilson one more time. Closing in, stays at just about 6/10 behind the leader. Not missing much in the Audis. That's about 2 seconds between Stradbeck and Rolla at the moment. Tyrone with his off track has fallen well back, nearly 9 seconds behind the second car in the podium.
Yeah, Laughter, Lake, and Trangarad, there we go. And actually, Trangarad got the position from Lake right there and then. Lake overshot Wilson. I don't believe that's... I believe he's done that already today.
Let's watch on the replay. A little bit deep into there, you can see a couple puffs of smoke as he tries to get the car woed up way to the outside, and no 2 invites needed for Ove Trangarade, who gets himself up into 5th for the Audis.
And of course, I point out my mistake in mispronouncing some of these names is we don't know who's going to be in these races, these official series races, until the simulation opens up. And the significant thing about that, of course, is nor do these drivers. A lot of these drivers may have never raced each other before, and so sometimes they do have to learn how to navigate their way around drivers that they're unfamiliar with, while at the same time racing for some big points.
Racing for big points right now is Olenek, going through Wilson one more time. He stretched it out just a little bit. It's now up to 1 second ahead of Leno Luoto, and I think we can forgive you coming in at the last second to stand in for poor Sean, who we definitely are sending good thoughts out to him and his family right now as they deal with a bit of an emergency. And we wish Sean the best, and we can't wait to have him back. But in the meantime, Leno Luoto stalking that leader, is hoping for a little help from the traffic, but he doesn't get it as Ross Goodacre is in just the wrong spot.
Spinner from 5th place, Michael Houghton goes around. Now, he had a big gap behind him, but he's still going to lose positions. It was a big spin.
Insman and Hall both went by. This is the second time Houghton has had issues. You can see it was just out of Palmer. And boy, the turbo lag on these Nissans has got to be frustrating with all the hairpin corners on this infield.
Yeah, I'm sure it also doesn't help too much mentioning the infield there that, remember, just a few years ago, this was infield. It was nothing but grass. So once you do get off the racetrack, there's nothing but grass for you to slide around on. And so you do lose quite a bit of time while you're trying to get your way back out into the circuit.
Well, let's go to Ove Trangerade. He was trying to chase down Ben Laughter, but now he's got to fend off Philip Lake, who's going to come up the inside. A big off at Augies gives an opportunity as Lake sneaks through Williams, but he might have himself under attack from Trangerade as they come back to Brundle. Not a good enough run, though. Let's look at the replay of Trangerade.
Yeah, we'll get a replay of this. Meanwhile, for you Houghton fans, I'll let you know he had another spin and has retired from the race.
Maybe he was just a little unsighted there from, I think that was Ben Laughter that was ahead of him into that hairpin. As we come back live.
Actually,
no, go ahead.
Houghton disconnecting just now, Joe, I believe, is actually our first retirement from the race.
Did he hit something, maybe?
No, he just spun off. Now, Riley Thompson is in the pits for an extended stay. Not sure what the story behind that is, but in the number 27 car, he'd qualified 26. Wasn't having a great race yet. Keeping an action, though, there's still a lot of action going out here on track.
Yeah, we're right on board with Trangerade, who had another off coming out of Riches. He has been a bit of a wild card out there for sure. Kind of all over the place. Mistakes are costing him, though.
They're costing Philip Lake as well. Like I say, I think we've seen him overshoot Wilson on more than one occasion.
These GTO machines known for being difficult under braking. Something's happened to the GTP leaders because Olenek, who was up to a second for a little bit, was down to 4/10. It's Lenuloto trying to reel him back in.
He's got over half a race still to try and make it happen. Now, Tapani there has the number 1 car, which of course means he has the highest I rating of anyone else in the race, but he qualified in 4th position.
Clearly his race pace looking better than his qualifying pace. Still putting the pressure on, holding it that half a second behind Olenek.
Trangerade, meanwhile, having a big off again, and this one could actually cost him positions. No, it would have cost him positions if there had been someone behind him, but he had a good enough gap that he gets back on course, still in 5th in class, but a lot further behind the couple of cars that were ahead of him.
Our 2 leaders almost had a bit of a moment with Brian Shanahan as we come back live, who was caught right before Brundle, but they snuck through at the last second, both of them. It was down to 3/10. Oh, and they've got more traffic as he tries to go the long way around the Audi of Matthew Smith. Depani does so as well, but he's going to have a bad line into Murray's, and that's going to hurt.
Yeah, you see on the nose of Shanahan's Audi back there, it's got a pretty significant punch in it. He's had that from early on in the race, so I don't think it's affecting him too much. Now, you may have seen at the back of the screen Antti Lepisto running wide exiting Morris. However, it won't hurt him too much. He has 14 seconds over John Keith, 5th in class, the next car behind him. But boy, that was... John Keith was again holding off Martin Ensman. Martin Ensman looking down the inside as they go into turn 1. Riches, and boy, pinches him, and that's going to hurt Ensman because this is for position 2. Jamie Hall takes it.
Hall had been waiting for that opportunity for a while, and he finally seals the deal coming out of Wilson, getting himself up into 6th now. That was brave stuff from Keith to just chuck it in there and hope it stuck.
And that it was clear.
Well, the Hoisingfeld machine had it all work out for him. He's still in the top 5, did not lose a spot. These 3 have been almost inseparable for much of this race, though.
Talk about inseparable. Ben Laughter once again as Philip Lake right on his rear bumper down the inside through Morris.
Puff of smoke locking up that 4-wheel drive. Once again, Philip Lake falls back, and now he's got to let the Nissan of Michael Schwanze come on through and separate them.
Joe, I let you type the passing zones for this race in our track notes, and you put Morris there, and I don't know about that because that didn't look like I was going to end up well.
A few people have
But
managed to make
you
it
put
work so far.
You put it in the danger zones too, so I commend you for that.
A lot of times it seems like the good places to passes are also a good place to throw it all away. Jamie Hall all over the back of John Keefe now. Ensman couldn't do it. Can Hall do it? He backs out of it before they even get to Riches. Maybe thinking about the next corner coming up to Wilson. A lot slower in these cars. A lot less reliant on the downforce. Unfortunately, he's not braver on the brakes, but he is going to stay within about 3/10 of Keefe.
Oh, one contact for Philip Blake. He gets hit by a Nissan. And actually, our race leader that made contact with Philip Blake. Now, this all started a couple of turns ago. Philip Blake had a big off and fell back into the clutches of Trangarade. So he was trying to keep an eye on Trangarade behind him here, and he was racing him. And I wonder if that distracted him from the fact that the overall race leader was trying to pass them both.
Yeah, he came from a long way back in that Minolta Nissan. So I kind of understand why he turned in, because he probably had no idea that there was a prototype that was sending one up the inside at the last second. See how late he was to the apex.
Well, the good news for them both is they both continue. Olmanek still has the race lead, but how much longer? Because I'm sure Lina Luto saw that, and you can see, I think he may have a bit of a top speed advantage now.
He caught him quickly coming up to Riches. Wasn't brave enough to try and send one up the inside there. Oh, a little sliding off the apex for both of them, as Olenek and Lina Luoto are pushing now. Thankfully for them, they've got a little bit of a breather before they get to Cesar Terron.
Let's not downplay the battle for third in the prototype class either, with Nicolas Mucanos not far ahead of Antti Lepisto. These two might get some screen time in the closing 18 minutes.
You see Mucanos, the teammate to our leader Olenek right now, so their team's going to get a good haul of points. Ooh, our leader's having some trouble with the Audi of Terron as he almost slipped into them, and this is going to give an opportunity. You can see the top speed advantage that Lina Luoto has as they come under the bridge around the outside of Murray's. Can he brake safe enough down into the corner? That was outside of Brundle rather, but he gets it done. Finally, Lina Luoto, despite a bad qualifying, gets himself into the lead. Can he hold on to it now?
Well, of course, all of a sudden Robert's going to have advantage of the slipstream. You see how Lenoto was able to pull that off, but how much longer will he have that lead? Because as they come down the front straight here, he is able to pull away. I definitely think there is some damage on that number 5 car because he was not able to make inroads on Lenoto down the front straight. Here's
the big question out of that. Olenek has the damage. He's got an 8.5 second gap back to third, Mucanos, and there's 17 minutes on the clock. Is that enough time for him to limp this thing home?
I've got to imagine with 8 seconds over Nicolas Mucanos, as you mentioned there, back in third place, he doesn't have too much to worry about, especially if he can hang on to the draft of leader. Now, one driver who has a lot less to worry about right now is Ben Laughter in fourth in the Audis, because we've seen Philip Blake and Trangaré, and actually they're still out there battling for fifth. We've seen these two battling each other and running into problems so often that it's just allowed Laughter to pull away from both of them.
These two have been stuck together like magnets. They're currently fighting for fifth in class. They're going to have a couple more Nissans try to work their way through, and this is a battle for position. It's Keefe and Hall who are still going at it. They interrupt the apex of Philip Blake, and he loses gobs of time.
You're not missing anything in the top 3 of GTO. Brian Strobbeck continues to hold that over Vil Ruola and Cesar Terron.
Should also mention that Jamie Hall has Jesus Pasillas just behind him, so this is almost and Ensman has a problem, and that's coming out of Murray's. got checked up by the traffic, and then you can see getting back to the power.
And let's jump from this on the same replay over to Andy Lepisto. Remember, he had been running 4th in the prototype class. Well, I think he's still running 4th, but he had a big spin, backed it into the wall, and that's going to cost him a lot of time there in that battle for 3rd.
Seen more mistakes than I'm used to in this series here today.
GTO traffic there threw him off on corner entry, but he should have still known to have slowed down a little bit more to compensate for the fact he was coming in at a tighter line. But then, like you say, Joe, all these drivers running on the verge of control.
There's a bit of a chatter between Keefe and Laughter. If we could get maybe about 40 seconds ago into the first corner, Keefe made probably one of the boldest moves I've seen all race long, which is saying something in a race like this. Let's go on board and watch this. On board with Keefe, maybe, or Laughter, either. Whew, look at how tight that was. Here we're going to get it on board from Keefe.
Was there any laughter from Keefe after he pulled that off?
Probably quite a bit. It sounded like Laughter wasn't very happy about it. Keefe just told him that he didn't turn down, so it all worked out. As we come back live, you can see Keefe holding on to that 5th place despite such a bold move.
Well, Trangaray had pulled away from Lake, but I guess he got lonely and wanted to race Lake again because he ran off, and now they're back at it side by side.
And Lake gets the position back once again. Trangaray just came off a win in the Lotus 49s just a couple hours ago. Doesn't look like he's going to get another one here today in a retro machine, as he falls back from Lake about half a second. Our 2 leaders in the GTPs holding it about a second apart. You might be right here, as Olenek has only lost half a second to Mukanos back there in 3rd, so his pace doesn't look too harmed.
John Keefe, he's just, his rearview mirror is tired of working.
He's got Jamie Hall. Maybe that's why he made that move that he did, just trying to put any sort of separation between himself and the UK driver. Oh, and a mistake! Keefe keeps it off the wall, but loses all kinds of time and positions. From
Well, his
5th
rearview
down to
mirror-
7th.
His rearview mirror done a good job for him up till that point.
Well, now his windscreen is going to get some action. So he's got to climb his way back forward. This has proved a tricky little track.
Yeah, no, like I say, it reminds me of VIR.
Certainly produces mistakes like VIR tends to, as you can see Keefe working his way past traffic. That's Goodacre being lapped by Cesar Turon, so that was not a battle for position in the Audis. "12 minutes left to go on the clock. Let's give a quick rundown of top 5 in each of our classes, get you up to speed. Tapani Lidaluoto leads by half a second over Olenek. Olenek has some damage. That cost him some top end, allowed the Finn to get by. Mukanos holds down 3rd in no man's land, followed by Lepisto all by himself as well, sitting in 4th. And then finally you get a bit of a battle between Jamie Hall and Jesus Pasillas, although they're separated by a second. What's the top 5 in the Audis look like?
Brian Strobbeck has had a really quiet race. Not a lot of drivers out there who can say that in either class. He's currently leading in the GTOs ahead of Vil Rirola, who likewise has kind of just been hanging on to 2nd all race long. Now, Cesar Turon, he had a busy opening few laps, was able to move up a few positions. He's now in 3rd, and you see a lot of these GTOs as we go to them having to move out the way for GTP traffic. Then we go back to Ben Laughton in 4th place. Remember, he was in the three-way battle for a long time, but then these two, who I think have just switched positions around again, now it's Philip Lake up in 5th, and Trangaray back down to 6th. Trangaray had it about 10 seconds ago, But, boy, Philip Blake, it looks like he has a good gap over Tranqueray now, but my guess is he'll make another mistake and Tranqueray will pass him again before the race is over.
I was going to say, I don't anticipate that staying where it is anyway. So actually, Tranqueray makes a big mistake, dipping the wheels into the grass on the entry to Brundle. Able to keep going, but just. Many drivers starting to spread apart.
Battle for 5th is on. Battle for 5th, here we go. Jamie Hall got held up by some GTO traffic. He's able to retain the position, but Jesus showing that he's definitely not content to finish in 6th.
That's a lap car of Martin Krajcik just ahead of him, holding up Hall once again, having to back off, looking for some clear space coming out of Williams. Krajcik holds off to the left, and finally Hall can get through.
Pasalas almost had the big man. Oh, and Pasalas flies by. I think Hall. I don't know if he was letting him by or if Pasalas just has a straight line advantage, but however it happened, Pasalas now up into P5.
Almost looked like a slowdown penalty for Hall, the way he just pulled over and lifted. Casillas, regardless, is going to be happy to crack himself up to the 5th position. As they come out of the final corner, can Hall come back at him?
And a battle for 7th. John Keefe just made a huge mistake, and Martin Ensman now looking on the outside.
Ensman going the long way around Corm, and they come together! Punted.
Now, Keefe gets going again. Ensman's going to struggle to get going again ahead of Arto Ihamaki, working his way through Mori now. So, Ihamaki gets ahead of Ensman, but we're going to have to wait and see which of them has any more damage. Yeah, and you can see Ensman was on the outside, but obviously he had the inside for Mori's. The two cars just come together at the apex.
Like Keefe was trying to carry a little bit more speed and didn't expect that Ensman would be that slow down to there. That Slipstream Racing number 12 is able to get going back in 8th, and I thought I heard a crash somewhere. Maybe my ears were just hearing things.
Now Cesar Terron is apologising on the chat for something.
Oh, and meanwhile, battle on screen. Martin Ensman has fallen back into the clutches of Ihamaki. Took a peek coming up to Augustini, but couldn't do anything with it. Now he's hounding him down into Augie's and an off course. Going wide at the hairpin means Martin Ensman loses yet another position. Not been a good few laps for the Diaz driver. Whoa,
John Keefe off. And back on again.
Yeah, the big lockup from Ensman that we saw on screen. He closed up quick coming up into Brundle. I wonder if the damage on the front of Ihamaki is hurting his downforce, especially in the braking zones.
Remember, Ihamaki got damaged earlier on in the race, and he's done a fairly decent job to come out of here right now with the top 10 despite that early damage.
Yeah, he's been climbing through the field, but Ensman closed so rapidly, I was a bit surprised. I feel like something must be wrong with the Finn's car. 5th place, once again, is the hot spot where cars love to battle. Casillas takes a peek on Hall, but going through Hamilton is very much single file, and he has to back out of it. Hall with a pretty decent run today, starting in 8th, has moved himself up into 5th. Casillas is doing his best to demote him and has much better top end. Look at that.
That's not the first time we've seen that. So Casillas just is able to get much better runs going down the back straight.
Well, he seems to gain at the very end of it, though. That's what's interesting. I wonder if there's just maybe some different gearing philosophies that some of these drivers have. Some of them may be running out of top end at the end.
It's a possibility. Meanwhile, there's a potential for a 4-car pack to be shaping up at the tail end of a prototype class here. With John Keith in 7th, we said he's getting tired of using his rearview mirror during this race. He might have to do it again. Kazato Ihamaki is behind him, then Martin Ensman, and then John Hill in 10th place. Now, all 4 of these combined are only about 5 seconds apart from each other.
Keith has the most to worry about. Ihamaki has closed in to within about a second of him. Ensman not too far as back as well, but not threatening at the moment.
And also,
Wilson.
I don't know how much of it has had to do with lap traffic, but Leon Luto had pulled out his overall lead to 2 seconds not too long ago. It's now back down to 1 second again, so it's definitely the battle for the race win might not be over yet.
These two still very safe, about 8 seconds between Olenek and Mukanos. Traffic could play a deciding factor. 4 minutes left, 5 minutes left on the clock. So far, many of the Audis spread out pretty far as we watched Olenek have to scarily work his way around the outside of Tyrone on Riches. But despite the Audis being spread out, you catch one in just the wrong space, especially in this infield portion, Sam. It seems to have wreaked the most havoc.
Yeah, it seems the infield is where the havoc is caused, and then they have to try and resolve it on the old portion of the circuit where they have that long straight and those passing opportunities. I still think my dad made the right choice in sitting us always at Bomb Hole or over at Brundle.
Yeah, I think that's where I would try and find a seat. I tell you what, Ihamaki almost had an opportunity on Keefe in traffic, but had to back out of it as they were coming through Coram and Murray's. Still holding on to the back of him. And now look at Ensman has closed the gap on Ihamaki as well.
And those two Audis that they just passed.
Oh, no, we need to go to Jamie Hall. Sorry, he just punted Pasilias, and they come together a second time out of Hamilton.
Pasilias gets going again first. They both get going again without losing any positions.
Bizarre incident. They were side by side. You're going to see, and then just somehow, as Hall tries to come back to the racing line, gets into the back of him. Let's watch on board Jamie's view. Yeah, I was trying to get back to the right side of the track, and it just went south so quickly.
Battle for 7th is heating up. Nothing happening just yet, but 7th, 8th and 9th getting closer and closer with Hideki Koivisto there and the GTO kind of interfering a little bit.
Ooh,
actually,
yeah.
quite a lot.
Oh yeah, I was going to say poor Ensman just caught him at the wrong time, I think. But this has allowed a break for Keefe and Ihamaki, who are now by themselves fighting for that 7th spot.
Meanwhile, look at the clock in the top left corner of our screen. Not a whole lot of time left in this race. It's really flown by with all these battles we've had out here. Now, Leo Luuto is working his way through Brundle and through Nelson.
Rob Olenek just made contact. Sorry to interrupt. Olenek got into the side of Franco Scurry coming through Brundle. He was holding close behind, and that really hurt his gap.
Yeah, definitely won't help his chances of winning. And let's see how much time there's left on the clock as they come across the start-finish line here.
It's going to be very tight.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm not really sure how many laps we've got left here. It's either 1 or 2.
We'll find out next time through. I have a suspicion it's 2, since iRacing's a bit weird about the white flag.
Of course, if the Singapore Grand Prix officials were running it, it'd be about 4 more laps.
Lenny Luoto has had to withstand the pressure. He's had to fight his way forward to get into this lead. He knows that Richie's not here today. He knows he can capitalize in the points battle. And right now, with the mistake from Olenek with the car contact, he's given a little bit of space. He might not himself know how many laps are left.
The battle for 7th isn't over in the prototype class between John Keefe and Arto Ihamaki. Recall, Keefe has been the one who's been busy driving defensively all race long, and Ihamaki isn't really able to do a lot on the straights because of that damage that he sustained early on in the race. As they go by the GTO, Keefe has to go on the grass.
Close fight. Just in case, we might want to head to Tapani Litiluoto as he comes through Quorum. Just in case this is the final lap. We'll find out soon. He hits Murray's nice and tidy, just down at the apex, holding at that 2.5 seconds over Olenek. As he crosses the line, what's it going to say? White flag is out, so 1 lap to go this time.
He crossed it right about the... he crossed it at the 44 minutes, 59 seconds, .562. He was 0.438 seconds early.
44-hour race. You must be a glutton for punishment.
Man, imagine a 24-hour race here. I mean, I'm sure they do it in real life in club racing.
I'm sure at some point we'll see some series attempt that. That'll certainly be interesting. Meanwhile, we see our leader and the Audis with a 4-second lead of his own come around for his final lap. Strodbeck. We've seen him dominate in this series before. We're getting to witness it one more time, although this time not by as huge of a gap. Certainly will help him in the championship. Go ahead.
Iamaki, I guess, did not have enough fuel.
Oh.
It comes in 1 lap to go. That'll cost him a position to Ensman, to Hill.
I wonder if that's why he seemed to lack top end. He must have been lifting and coasting. Well, he'll have to correct that next time around because this race is just about over. Tapani Litiluoto almost has a moment coming out of the final corner, but he does not throw it away. He keeps it pointed forward, and he takes the win here at Snetterton.
First ever GSRC broadcast at Snetterton. Congrats to Tapani for getting the overall win. He's not going to be the only one, though, for this historic moment as far as I'm concerned on the Global Sim Racing channel, as Brian Strodbeck in the number 3 car is making his way through the last couple of turns in his Audi. He does have some prototype traffic behind, but I have a feeling it's willing to stay there. As Strodbeck comes out of Murray's, is on the loud pedal now, accelerating towards the finish line. No pressure from behind, and Strodbeck will take a win in GTO.
And with that, we're going to go to break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. I'll have Sam instruct me where the best place for fish and chips is around here. But don't go away because we'll have the official results as well as driver interviews, and all the upcoming races will be on your screen during the break.
Hello and welcome back to Snetterton Circuit, where we just witnessed round 2 of the iRacing Kamel GT series. Now, before we left, Joe was asking me about the best fish and chip shops nearby. There's one called Rumble's Fish Bar, which is just south. It has a 4.6 star rating on Google Maps that I'm finding right here, but it closes in a couple of hours, so if you need to go out a bit later and you head over towards Banham, there's a place called Trawler's Catch, which has 4 reviews with a 4.8 rating, and Silver's Catch Fish and Chip Shop. So there's actually quite a few choices, Joe.
Well, maybe you and I will have to stop by. I'm actually getting hungry here. It's lunchtime where I am. But up at the top, hungry for a win, was Tapani Lindaluoto, and he capitalized on the lack of Keith Ritchie here today. He didn't have it all his own way. Rob Olenek had to make him work for it, but Olenek, with a few mistakes throughout the race, including traffic, sent him back and finishing 3.5 seconds back in second place. Nicholas Mukanos rounds out the podium. Didn't see a whole lot of him, but he had a fair bit of his own action. Antti Lepisto finished in 4th as well. He fell back a little bit, but found his way forward with others' mistakes, gifting him some positions. Jesus Pasillas, despite being punted off track, wound up in 5th. Jamie Hall came home behind him. He was the one that made contact with Jesus. Jamie Hall in 6th. John Keefe in 7th. Also had to really fight for it. He held off both Jamie Hall and, momentarily held off Jamie Hall and Martin Zenman before John Keefe's mistakes put him in 7th. Martin Ensman finished in 8th, with Sean Hill coming home in 9th. Ardo Ihamaki, not enough fuel. Explained why we kept seeing him have slow entry speeds into corners, trying to lift and coast. He rounds out the top 10 at least. Michael Swansea finishes in 11th, with Jerry Forkolb coming home in 12th, and Martin Krejcik in 13th. Jason Wallet, rounds out our Nissan field that managed to take the cars home in 14th. Sam?
Yeah, Brian Strobbeck took an easy win in GTO, or at least he made it look easy, over Vil Ruola and Cesar Torreon rounding up the podium. Ben Laughter, he definitely had a few hairy moments out there, but he brought it home in 4th. The battle that went on all race long, it seemed, was eventually won by Philip Blake. He took 5th ahead of Trangaray. Hideki Korovisto was back in 7th position in class ahead of Matt Smith, and then Brian Shanahan. Now we get to the drivers who had trouble during the race, including Laurent Raffagu in the prototype, Franco Scurry and Ross Goodacre, who were just a little bit off the pace there back in the GTO field, and Michael Houghton. We saw, I don't know if we saw it, but he had a couple of spins off track and then decided to retire after being running in the top 5 early on. Riley Thompson also had an early retirement in GTO.
First up, we're going to talk to our 3rd place finisher, Nicholas Mukanos, in the Nissans. Came home on the podium, but of course he had a few battles along the way early on and then got a little bit of racing space. It sure seemed like in this first time for the Kamel GT series, Nick, to Snetterton, that traffic played a major role out there.
Yeah, traffic was tough today. I really didn't have any practice sessions that had a lot of Audi, so I didn't. It was like the first run with practice today, so I guess it turned out okay for me.
Now, at the start, we saw some shuffling up at the sharp end with drivers going back and forth. Was there any moment where you thought, oh, maybe I could have a chance of a win with a few of the top contenders making mistakes?
Yeah, I guess Tapani maybe had bad qualifying or something, because he definitely had pace today, but he spun the tires right in the beginning and everyone was going back and forth, and I thought I maybe had some chance, but there were some freebies and then I made a pass, but then the second half of the race, yeah, it was kind of uneventful.
So what's your take now that you've run the 300 course? Do you want to see Snetterton back? And if so, do you want to try the 200 next time?
It's the first time on this track for me, but it's really fun. I like it a lot. And my tactic today was don't screw up the last 2 corners. So, yeah, it's fun. I'd be happy to come back here.
Well, thanks for coming and talking to us. Congratulations on a podium finish, and good luck next week.
Yep, thanks.
Nicholas Mukanos, 3rd in the GTP field. Winner in the GTOs, Brian Strodbeck, is caught up with Sam Ryman.
Yes, Brian, first off, congratulations on your victory.
Thank you very much.
Well, Of course, you hear this when a driver runs away with a win quite often. We say, you made it look easy, but we're sure it wasn't.
Well, no, it was not easy at all. It was more of just racing the track. I didn't do more than like 10 laps in practice in a row, so I wasn't sure what my tires were going to be like. Luckily, everything kind of worked out.
Yeah, it worked out quite well for you. What are your thoughts on the track? For me, it's a home track, so I'm biased towards it, and I guess you've got to have a fond spot for it now that you picked up a W here.
Yeah, I'm not too keen on the infield part. I guess that would be the 300 part on the inside. But everything else is really good. It seems like the 300 part is more geared towards like a motorcycle race.
I know a lot of drivers in England, or riders rather, do like bringing their motorcycles here. Now, of course, we go back to a more familiar track next time. We go to Daytona. Do you think you can continue to build on your strong result from today?
I'm not sure, but I'm sure going to try my best.
All right, well, we congratulate you on the victory, Brian, and look forward to seeing how many more you can get during this season.
All right, thanks, guys. Thanks, Sam.
That was our winner in the GTO field, Brian Strodbeck. We have one more person that we're going to talk to today. Fourth place finisher just off the podium in those Audis was Ben Laughter. Now, Ben, it seemed like you had quite a battle with Philip Lake, and then we watched Philip Lake continue that battle with Ove Trangarade behind you. He seemed like a tough customer.
Yeah, I'll tell you, first off, with this field, I'll take top four. That was a battle. And yeah, once I got around Ove and Philip, it took most of the race just to hold them off, and then I sort of got lucky with traffic. But great track, great battle. I enjoyed it.
It seems like the braking for Nelson Corner going through Brundle and also the braking coming out of Coram into Murray's, the final corner, were very, very difficult for the Audis. We saw a lot of them understeer off. Were you experiencing a lot of that understeer in this car?
Yeah, you've got to, especially turn 9, I think that's Nelson. That's coming from a near top speed straight. So you've got to be down in second gear by that left-handed apex and just way down on speed. So that was the hardest corner for me to learn on the track. I went off there several dozen times. So it took some work. It is tricky in this car.
So you seem happy if I could speak, if you seem very happy with this fourth place result. Next week when we go to Daytona, that tends to throw up a bit of chaotic results with it being a bit of a draft track. Do you think you could make it one better, get yourself onto the podium?
Yeah, I think so. I've done well at Daytona before in this series, in this car. So what's funny about Daytona is that this thing punches such a hole in the air that you can draft from 2 seconds back. So it's hard to break away. So people aren't going to be able to pull away unless they're just amazing on the infield. That said, I got to say with Strodbeck and some of these other guys in the field, they're amazing on the infield. So I'll still be battling for a podium, hoping for lucky wins.
All right. Well, we wish you the best next week, and thanks for talking to us.
You bet. Thank you guys as always.
It was Ben Laughter, fourth place in the GTO class. We're going to close up, though, today. And, of course, we want to thank the Kamel GT community for rallying together and bring another season back here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Also, thanks to Rob Olenek and Andrew Backey for what they do for the VCR Championship behind the scenes. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. Additional thanks to Eric Ekholm and Casey Lalonde who provide our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of their great work. Thanks to the team today, Sam, Amjad, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. Or you can check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel. We're always posting races as they come to air on there. Or you can check us out on Facebook. It's just Global Sim Racing Channel, one word if you type it in. Next race, as we mentioned, it is at Daytona. However, those familiar with iRacing, it's the 2007 version before they repaved it. It's going to be very bumpy. Going to be interesting on the Nissans, which are a little bit low slung. That'll be Saturday, September 30th at 1 p.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. However, until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.